Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on how to build new revenue with online events. If we go to the next slide. Today, who's presenting is myself and Sandra. So I'm Sabir and I'm the UK and Ireland marketing lead here at Eventbrite. And Sandra is our product trainer in both the UK and Ireland. And today we're going to share with you how to drive new revenue with online events. If we go to the next slide, our agenda for the day is we're going to talk a bit about the why. So why are online events popular? Why are we starting to see success with them? I always like to go into create a story or a success story. So we'll give you some details on one of our creators and how they got started online. Setting up your online events, and then marketing and promotion. So we'll move from the thought leadership angle to the more practical angle of how to use Eventbrite to drive your online events. Right, so to kick off, we did a survey last year to really understand what the phenomenon was with online events. So in 2020, virtual events took off in a big way. As the world went into quarantine and our ability to gather in person stalled, event creators and attendees found new ways to connect to Eventbrite. Even as in-person events have begun to return to our platform, we're finding that the success of virtual gatherings has fundamentally changed the event landscape. Virtual events, which our data shows aren't going away anytime soon, and there's a great opportunity for you to leverage those in addition to your face-to-face events. So why? Why do we think that online events are here to stay? Well, to be honest, really online events in 2020 has really opened our eyes into new ways of connecting. Previously, online events and online interactions were reserved for those situations that were only absolutely necessary, or with a few exceptions. However, now everything from interviews, gatherings, and learnings are occurring online, really stemming from necessity. So when you ask if I would say online events are here to stay, I'd say yes, because our desires and our needs have changed slightly, and we're more receptive to the online event format. But that's well and good to say that online events are here and have started, but how do we continue to drive that momentum? And if we go to the next slide, there's a few key fundamentals as to why we're seeing creators see success in online events and why we think that they'll be here to stay post-pandemic. So the first one is that they are really scalable. You can adapt to and have an ability to increase your demand easily. So as demand increases, you can increase the size of your event quite easily with limited costs. So that is why online events are proving very valuable. The second thing is that it's a global reach. What we're discovering is now you no longer just have to restrict your access to the people who can travel to your event or the people around the area. It's now expanding to anyone and everyone who has a computer, a laptop, or internet connection. There's a term going around at the moment, which is going global. And that means that having a local event, but with global attendees. And so that really shows that there's reach and scale with online events. The third opportunity with online events is the ability for accessibility and to increase accessibility through the ticketing strategy and pricing. So this means that anybody, regardless of disability or location, has now the same level playing field that someone in the area or who was mobile is able to attend an online event together. And the last thing I would touch on there is that actually there's a fear that online events will discount the value of face-to-face events, but to be honest, it will add a premium to the face-to-face interactions. I'm definitely craving the return to live events and being able to have that human connection. And actually, while I'll continue to attend online events for their practicality and for their convenience and their ability to give me access to global events that I may never have been able to attend previously, I'll also see the value and place a premium on the face-to-face interaction. So it actually increases an ability to have two revenue streams there. which I'll touch on later. If we go to the next slide. So it's great for me to kind of share with you my thoughts as to why I think online events are valuable and why we at the company do, but it's always even more valuable when you see it in the data. And so if we go to the next slide, we'll share with you some of the research that we did last year to kind of confirm and validate that online events are a really valuable additional revenue stream in your event programming. So last year we had 75 million attendees and over 1 million online events were organized on our platform. That is huge, and that's unprecedented. I know that term gets used around often, but it truly was unprecedented in terms of the sheer volume and scale. And for me, that just shows the huge opportunity there for anybody willing to capture it. If we go to the next slide, it's interesting to see that the types of events that really ran strong on the platform last year. So there were three main takeaways that I saw, or three main event types that really performed well last year in the online event space. There was a huge appetite for personal development and learning, so that classes environment. As people are being confined to their homes, they're starting to reflect more on their gaps and opportunities and what they want to learn. And so really that thirst is now translating to purchases of online event resources, tools, and events. So 25%, as I mentioned, of our events were all online classes and personal development. Also, we saw that visual and performing arts really did see some success on our platform. So these are anything from music to a theatre. During Christmas time, we saw a lot of online pantomimes, which was interesting, and a lot of Christmas style events. So this just shows that for me, escapism is still there and people want an ability to release and have a bit of comic relief where possible. So if you're thinking of doing a visual or performing arts event, there is opportunity there. And the third most interesting trend was that social justice events really started to take off last year and continue to see success this year. And that demonstrates the real appetite for activism. In June, we saw a big shift in people's perceptions with the Black Lives Matters movement, and we're seeing that translate to online events where people are craving to learn more. On that note, if we go to the next slide, here's an example of one of the events. So Ibram X. Candy, one of our creators and an author, created an event called How to Be an Anti-Racist, and it took the top spot with more than 277,000 attendees. Now, the size of the O2 Stadium is about 20,000 capacity, so that just gives you sheer insight into the sheer volume of this online event and how global reach and scale is a huge opportunity with online events. If you go to the next slide, there's always a question mark. Sorry. So with these events, you can see that there's data and then there's opportunity. And as I mentioned earlier, I love to do a narrative, which is, but why, but why, but why? So why online events are happening? It's stemming out of necessity. People are being more willing to shift. Why are they continuing to see momentum? It's because they are driving real scale. They're giving creators an access to an online, a global audience, and they really are enabling accessibility in terms of pricing and tiering. So then it really comes down to, but why are we even seeing that success from a creator's point of view? And so what I like to do is drive to a case study or share a story of one of our creators and why they are seeing success. And if we go to the next slide, The Guardian has really been kind enough and gracious enough to allow us to share their story with you all. And The Guardian is a major international publisher and media organization and has reach all across the globe. And what they do, in addition to their digital and print publications, they also do an event series. And it was called The Guardian Live. And prior to the pandemic, it was predominantly face-to-face events that occurred in London. But since the pandemic, they've shifted their business into the online forum and have started to see success. Before I go into too much detail about The Guardian, I'd like to just share a video so that you can get some context into what their events are looking like online and how they're doing them. If we want to press play.
There are no rules anymore.
You know, we need to support media.
As difficult as some of these conversations are, I find them a little bit cathartic.
There is a Q&A box on the side.
So that you just saw is one of the videos that The Guardian created, which summarizes some of the online events that they're doing. And in addition to a great explanation of what they're doing, I also love the fact that with videos now, you can create these user-generated content videos. So it's not, while the big budget, I guess, videos have their value, it's really kind of exciting and invigorating to know that you can be nimble and create some user-generated content through these online events, which is great. Sorry, that's my plug for video. To the next slide. So before I get into what they found and why they think that online events has really been valuable to their business, I think it's all important to share some really interesting numbers and stats as to what The Guardian has found, and I was super impressed by. So The Guardian shared with us their story and mentioned that from the date of the pandemic hitting and having to refund their last event that was no longer possible to attend, to the date not only of going live with their new event online, but also actually hosting the online event, it was 23 days. So that just shows the ability to pivot quickly and be nimble with an online event format. They also saw a 300% increase in attendance from their face-to-face event, their last face-to-face to their last online event. And so that, again, as I mentioned earlier, the sheer reach and scale with online events is a huge opportunity. And the last point there is that they saw their largest event was 15,000 people online, and that was a Margaret Atwood event with In Conversation with one of their journalists. And for me, that again shows scale and reach. And a point to note there is their largest face-to-face event was 2,500 people. So it gives this huge opportunity to being able to scale quickly, to capture that global reach, and still continue to do those great events and quality events. And so if we go to the next slide, with those stats in mind, what they found is a few different things that we can learn from. So one was the ability to pivot quickly. 23 days from going from refunding the last event to having and hosting an online event is super impressive. And it just shows that you can potentially get started and have trialed your first event within a month from now. They also saw increased attendees. And with increased attendees means you can increase your lead generation capabilities. You've now got a global audience that you're driving and attracting global reach. And the beauty of the Eventbrite platform is we have that global audience and we have that global exposure to enable you to capture those leads and drive new attendees. The other thing to note is there's a huge appetite for learning. As I mentioned earlier, consumers are craving learning things online. While they're in lockdown, they're in reflection mode, and they're seizing these opportunities to learn new information and learn new things. And so there is a huge consumer appetite for learning. With the pay what you can pricing model that they chose to use, that meant that it enabled accessibility for different types of audiences. So a pay what you can model is you have an ability to charge a set fee, or you can pay what you can. And that has enabled them to continue to drive the revenue for those who can afford it, but enable accessibilities for those who can't. And that's a unique opportunity that you don't really have the ability or luxury to do in a face-to-face event because of the necessary costs that are required and capacity restrictions that you have. And my favorite point that The Guardian shared with us is that this is actually a new revenue stream for them, not a supporting revenue stream. And that is one of the most interesting points of view there, is that actually this is something that's sustainable for the long term, that you can kind of build your business on as an incremental and then continue to do the face-to-face events when they occur. This also is a huge opportunity for event managers and event directors to be able to start cementing their value of their events to the business, which sometimes before has had a lot of scrutiny and maybe not the visibility at the top level. So with the sheer numbers, imagine 15,000 people, that really does cement your seat at the table to demonstrate the value of why online events are great for businesses and also events in general. So if we go to the next slide, there's three more things that I wanted to kind of add to the Guardian case study once I've read through their story and talk to the team about what is making their events so successful. And for me, there's 3 points that kind of resonate. One, they're a content-driven publisher, and they have a great ability to repackage the information and content that they have into an online event format. The other thing is they have a real trusted and credible source of information. So I don't know if you've heard of the news, but with there's been a lot of media attention around the Australia and Facebook woes on the news, and the Australian government wanting to charge Facebook to share credible and accurate information online. And while that dispute is still happening, Facebook has shut down the access to news information on their site in Australia. And what that does is gives rise to the fake news opportunities. However, with the ability of online events, and if you are a trusted and credible source of information, you have a huge opportunity to be sharing that information to people who want to learn the accurate and learn the real stories about people and information. And the last thing of where I think The Guardian has seen huge success in is that they have such a strong community following that is enabled to translate well to an online event setup. And they also have a huge contact database or contact list of journalists who have contact, speakers that really make for enriching and engaging events. And so if you're thinking of having an online event, these 3 things anybody can really do. Think through what content you already have and how you can repackage it. Make sure that you can deliver the quality and the credible information. And 3, tap up your list of networks and contacts to see how you can translate that into an online event that other people will want to attend. If we go to the next slide, The Guardian is a story of growth for me. They saw an opportunity. They were under immense adversity, like everyone at the beginning of the pandemic. The business got shifted overnight, and instead of I guess crawling under the covers, they really seized the opportunity for online events and pivoted their business model into an online event format. And that for me really just shares the story of growth and how many businesses can do that. So we will share with you these slides, but there's even more opportunities. So The Guardian is one of our creator stories. We have a fair few. And so if you go to the next slide, I'm going to just talk to you about pricing and how a couple of our creators have chose to do their pricing strategy. We get a lot of questions about online pricing and how to charge. And so instead of me telling you how I think you should charge, I've decided to share with you a couple of creator stories. And so if we go to the next slide, here's an example of a yoga studio. They charge, what we're seeing on our platform is the charging for yoga can be anywhere from £4 to £27. And what that means is that, so the yoga event platform is really translatable to an online event format. And so it definitely shows that there's opportunity there. If we go to the next slide, So here, what we've done is shown a bit more of a Q&A with the creator. So we've asked them specifics about how they chose to price their event, how they managed to switch, and if there is any more changes. So after this presentation, you can take a look and go through those slides. You can just press pause and have a read through. I won't go through them too much now in the interest of time, but I definitely wanted to make sure you have that access to the information. If you go to the next slide, music creators. So believe it or not, you can have an online music venue. This is a Tree of Life and Productions, and they have basically created a new digital venue in the wake of the pandemic. And what that means is you can literally have a music venue in your living room. So this image here is obviously of the musician's living room, but it's managed by the music creator or music entrepreneur, as I would like to call them. And what he's charging is £8 for about GA tickets, general admission, and $15.50 for VIP. And I mentioned earlier, tiered pricing is an opportunity, and I think this is a great example of how to do that. So what tiered pricing means is you can have different types of ticket prices for different offers, and how to do that on an online format. This creator has chosen to have a general GA access, so the general Zoom access that you and I might go onto any presentation and watch, and that is charged at £8. But then for privileged access, he created breakout rooms where people who paid the VIP membership could speak directly to the musician after the gig. And so there again, you can have that premium pricing structure and accessible pricing structure at the same time. Again, if you go to the next slide, I've shared with you some of his questions and answers as to like how he started, how he managed to pivot, and how did he choose his pricing strategy. An interesting case around this one is that he just asked around his friends and his members what would they be willing to charge, so that they could be fair to attendees, but also pay the musicians fairly. And so that's an interesting story of how to price right and how to be authentic and trustworthy online. If we go to the second last slide, I should say, this is some data points around an online conference and what they're charging. So what we're seeing is anywhere between £27 to £116 is what online conferences are charging. And the beauty of that is that these online conferences and online learning sessions translate really well to an online event format. And so if you can see in the next slide, this conference organizer has actually done a combination of free events and then paid events, so that then you can charge them online, but also continue to drive that lead generation. So again, after this presentation, you can pause the screen and have a read through of their Q&A there. So that kind of concludes my section in terms of why online events and how they're valuable. To anyone considering when or how or if I should do an online event, I would just suggest, if you're considering organizing one, the time to really start is now. You've got a huge opportunity. We are unfortunately in lockdown, but that actually drives new innovation. So embrace the times and try and get started with your first online event. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to, as Sabia mentioned earlier, just go through how you use the platform to create your online events and promotion, and how to best utilize the features. So I'm going to start with online event planning. So every event plan is going to be different, but we have highlighted a few of the key parts of your event that you're going to need to be thinking about before you start your online event plan. So as with in-person events, the first really important thing to do is to identify and understand your audience. This is really crucial. And we have recommended asking yourself who's going to be attending, what challenges and problems are they facing, and what are their goals. Why this is so crucial is understanding your attendees, who they are and what they're struggling with. It's going to help you to create an online event that really satisfies their needs. So remember that an online event, it may not allow audiences that couldn't attend your in-person event an opportunity to engage with you and your brand. So you are getting a wider reach. So it is important to understand that audience. And the next thing that's important when planning your online event is to think mobile. So online events can work on any device. So it is really important to bear in mind that people could be attending your event on their phone or their tablet rather than on a laptop or desktop. So you're going to want to make sure to optimize your mobile experience when creating your events and materials. So this could be anything as simple as ensuring that your slides and your content are really easily visible on a smaller screen. So think larger fonts and clear imagery. And then the last one is monetization. So are you going to be charging for your event? Will it be free? Or could you set your event as a pay as you like in the form of donations? And on the Eventbrite platform, we do give you the option to have a free, paid, or a donation type tickets. So you can host for all these options on your event page. We are seeing that the median price for paid online events is approximately £43. And although this is lower than our average in-person event price, these events are now able to accommodate a lot more attendees across a wider geographical location, and they can also be hosted more regularly with lower overheads. So Sabia just went through that in a little bit more detail. So it is important just to, test things out, see what price works for you, and just keep that in mind. And also, don't forget that we do have an option to include add-ons as well onto your event. So in the ticket section, you'll see an add-ons option. So you can sell things such as merchandise, and you can assist with merchandise or, books or crafts or anything like that. And that can assist you with gathering additional revenue as well. And once you have your high level plan, then you can really get into the meat of the event. So there's multiple components here that you need to consider. So let's just go through these. The first one, pick your content or topic. So what is your event going to be about? Are you adapting an in-person event or creating something completely from scratch? It is a good idea to stay away from going too broad or vague and hone in on one specific area. And I would say don't be afraid to go niche. So if this is what your expertise leads you to, then that's what will make your event stand out from the crowd. Also very important is to choose your format. So there's an infinite amount of ways that you could host your event, and you're going to need to decide what works best for your content and your audience. So this could be a single or dual presenter, a panel of guests, an interview with an expert, a product demonstration, or classroom style workshop. So you're going to want to find one that will be the most successful with your audience and also the easiest for you to implement. Next one that's quite important is to find a great speaker. So just as for your in-person events, you need to find the right presenter or speaker for the event and the topic. So you're going to want to make sure that they're comfortable with public speaking, that they can engage with an audience online. For speakers and presenters, it can be very daunting, even for experienced speakers, to move to online because it's something new. And, especially because they might, they're used to audiences' cues, such as body languages and reactions. So it is going to take time to adjust if they're not used to it before. So I do recommend setting up practice runs for any new online speakers and walking them through the different ways they can engage with the audience throughout the event. Next is pick a date and time. So this will vary depending on your audience. So we mentioned know your audience just a minute ago. So it is important to consider this as well. So for example, business events tend to stick within weekdays and business hours. But if you take a look at different types of events, such as a craft workshop, these may be better suited to after hours or even on a weekend. So don't forget, with an online event, your audience is also global. So that's another thing to consider when you're picking a time and date. So you might have your event set up to take advantage of audiences in other time zones, or you might host recurring events at different times so that you can maximize your availability to your audience. And then also, when it comes to picking a date and time, you're going to want to think about how long your event is also, depending on your audience. So for example, for most events, you're going to want to stick to around 30 minutes up to the hour mark, as you'll find that if it's longer than this, you can lose engagement. If you look at events then that are smaller or more niche events, so say like a cooking workshop, you may be able to extend these type of events by a couple of hours by keeping the class size low and also allowing constant engagement throughout. And then lastly, it's important that you choose the right platform. So with Eventbrite tickets to your event, we take care of the ticketing part, but you will need to partner with the technology platform to actually host your online event. And next, what I want to look at is event costs. So all types of events, in person included or online, balancing a budget is one of the major challenges event planners face. And this goes for, like I said, both in-person and online events. So with in-person events, you have costs such as venue hire, equipment, on-site staffing, and even travel and accommodation of key speakers to factor in. With online events, there are less costs involved apart from equipment and online platform costs. So when it comes to online platform costs, these can vary. So it is really important to first identify your needs, and then you can choose the best platform to suit those needs. So leading on from that, one question that we do get asked a lot from creators is, which video hosting platform should I use? So the platform that will best meet your needs, it does depend on a variety of factors. So this includes your event capacity, what your budget is, level of interactivity desired, and also whether or not you want attendees to pay to access your content. So the logos on this slide represent some of the most popular video hosting platforms that are currently used by event creators on Eventbrite, and they do vary in many ways. So what we've done is we've broken out some key features and identified whether or not each platform offers them. So you'll see here that options like Zoom and Vimeo, they can be more expensive as they do offer advanced features. So looking at a high level, they both have excellent interactivity capabilities. So things like questions and answers and polls, and they both allow you to capture attendee data. So both have also customization available, and they do allow you to accept payments. And then if you look at other platforms like Facebook Live, YouTube, and even Twitch, these are free to use and they're very easy to set up, but they're not capable of capturing your attendee data and engaging with them before or after your live stream. So also something to mention with these is there is no way to currently accept payments. So it is very important to first consider what your needs are, and then that will help you to choose the right platform. And now I just want to walk you through how to set up an online event on Eventbrite. So for these steps, we will be assuming that you have a general familiarity with the Eventbrite platform and that you have set up an event previously or are aware how to set up an in-person event. So there's three main steps to setting up an online event. The first one is setting your location to online events. The second one is creating your tickets. And then lastly, setting up your online event page. So this is going to be a place where your attendees know how and where to join your event. So you can think of it like your virtual venue. So we're going to look at these in more detail now. I'm just going to jump into a demo. So we're going to start here with the first one, is setting up your event location to online. So in your basic information tab, you'll scroll down to the location section and you'll select online event. So if you're starting from scratch, you'll select online event. If you have an in-person event and you want to pivot that to online, again, it's very easy to switch to an online event just by going to this section and switching it from venue to online. Once you've done that, you're going to see this extra option here on the left-hand side menu, your online event page. So we'll get to that in a second. We're just going to go to our ticket section next. So step 2 is creating your tickets. So you're going to see it's the same as setting up for an in-person event for your tickets. You'll have your options to set up a free, paid, or donation ticket type up at the top here, and then you'll fill it out like you would for any other event. Also, we mentioned a few minutes ago that we have add-ons. So if you do want to generate more revenue by selling merchandise or things like that, you can create an add-on here. It's much like creating a normal ticket type. And the good thing about this as well is it doesn't take away from the capacity of the event. So that's a really good way that we've seen creators utilize this feature to create an extra revenue stream as well. So let's next go on to our online event page. So as I mentioned, you can think of this as your virtual venue. So when you come onto this page first, I just have an example here, but I'm going to scroll below. You're going to see your options here. We do have a direct integration with Zoom. So you can just click on this. It's a very easy couple of steps and connect with your Zoom webinar. So you can, if you have one already set up on Zoom, you can sync with that. And if not, it will actually create one for you. So we will be following up with step-by-step guides on what that will look like after. So don't worry, you can have them to hand as you're setting up your event. You'll also see the other options here. So we have Google Meet, Vimeo Live, YouTube Live, and we also have the option to add a webinar or live stream. So if you are using another platform that's not mentioned here, you simply select one of these, and you'll see here you can add a title, an image, the webinar title, and just the link for whatever platform you're using. It's a good idea also just to add information below that, like the agenda, so that attendees will be able to see that at any time on their virtual page, which we'll be looking at in a moment. Once you've set that up, you're also going to see settings here. So I'll just pop into them for a second. And you do have different options here. So in the example of the music creator that Sabia had earlier, we mentioned that they had general admission tickets, and then they had also VIP to talk directly with the band. So if you're something like that is set up that you want to separate out what ticket types get different things, you can restrict access here to a ticket type. So if I select members ticket here, for example, this link can only be accessed then on the online event page by people who have selected this ticket type. And so on with any other ticket types. If you add a different link, you can restrict that to a certain ticket type as well, or you can just have the link accessible to all by selecting all tickets that it's set to by default. Also below that, you may decide, or you may not have your link ready yet when you make your event live. So it's something you might add later, or for whatever reason, you mightn't want it to appear straight away. So in that case, you can hide it until the event starts, or you can also create a custom schedule, as you can see here. And if you choose either of these two options, there's also an option to notify attendees when this is shown. So when you select this, once you make it visible, they'll get a notification to let them know. So once you've set all that up, then this preview is a really great tool because you can see the virtual venue that your attendees are going to see. So if I just click on preview here, this is the page they'll have access to. So they can access this from their confirmation email at any time. And even after the event is finished, if you, for example, add a video or a recording to it or any links, then they can access that even after the event is finished. And to join, they simply click on the image and they can join when the time has come that the event is starting. And I just mentioned there that they can access certain things after the event as well. So you'll see under additional details here, you can add extra text, images, you can add a link to a video and also add a link, like if you've documentation or anything like that, for example. So you do have the option to add those as well. So that's how you set up your online event. Again, we're going to follow up with step-by-step guides that walks you through every step that you can follow along as you're setting up your online event. Just before I move back to the presentation out of the demo, I just want to mention one other thing. So you will be used to, with your in-person events, that there's a 48-hour reminder email goes out. So in the case of online events, we do have a few more reminders. So you'll see here, we have a reminder that goes out 2 days before the event, 2 hours before the event, and 10 minutes before the event, just so that they're ready to join the link that you've sent to join the webinar or the live stream. So you'll see here that you can delete them if you wish, or if you want to add any information or change them a little bit, you do have the option to edit also. And if you want to see what they look like, you can just click on them and it will give you a preview. So you'll see there, it just tells them how to join and it just gives them all the information they need. Now, so once you have your plans in place, the next thing you're going to need to do is tell people about your event. So we could spend a whole other webinar on event marketing and promotion alone. So today we're only going to be looking at the general overview. So you need to make sure you have somewhere for your attendees to register or purchase tickets for their event. You need to set up a campaign plan and what channels you'll be using to promote your event. And finally, you'll want to ensure that you have the correct tracking and reporting to see what's working in your marketing plan. So if you're hosting an event on Eventbrite, this will be your event page. You can customize the information displayed on this page. You can include additional information on the confirmation email and ticket. And you can even create a unique landing page for attendees online that we looked at to include information such as your online event webinar link, and also for pre or post event downloads. Also, what's really handy is you'll notice here that we have your event registration page, your event ticket, and online event page, and they all have this follow option. So attendees have the option to follow you as an organizer, in which case every time you publish and make live a new event, they'll get notified so that they can be first in line to register for those events. And next, you're going to need to think about your campaign and promotional plan. So from when you launch to your event day, consider what activity and channels will be most effective and when. So I know a frequent question that's asked is, how early should you launch your event? And this is going to really depend on your type of event and the number of attendees you require. So for example, a larger scale event with a bigger price point, it might need multiple weeks or months to sell and promote. But if you look at a free webinar in comparison with an already established database, that might only need a lead time of a week. So that's something to think about. And generally then with paid events, we see the majority of their sales close to the event day. So many customers are reluctant to purchase a ticket too far out from an event. So as such, you'll want to plan your marketing campaigns to meet this customer behavior. And then with launch, you're going to want to lean heavily on your own channels to announce the event. So this includes your website, blog posting on social media, and emailing your existing database. So this might include also previous in-person event attendees. And you can continue to update these channels as you move through your campaign period, because you're going to have new information or content around the event to share. So just make sure to keep an eye on your engagement rates, and that will ensure your audience isn't being overloaded with too much information. And then also, if your event does have a quirky or newsworthy angle, it could be worth seeking earned media at launch or even throughout the campaign phase. So this includes reaching out to influencers and bloggers, what's on pages, or even local radio. And with paid media, it's a great way if you do need to reach new audiences, but it can be expensive. So performance marketing and social performance marketing on social, search and display, they can be really effective ways to reach a relevant new audience. And also leveraging partners or third-party databases, they can also help you to get your event out there. So if you work with sponsors or similar events that you can use cross promoting with, then that will also help to keep costs low. And then lastly, I just wanted to also mention traditional media, so such as radio and print. That's still an option as well. And depending on your event size and marketing budget, that might also be a great channel to explore. So as there's generally a cost with these channels, I do recommend investing in them closer to your event day, where they're likely to find customers ready to purchase tickets. And then outside of these marketing channels, there's also tools and features on Eventbrite that can also help you promote further. So you can use our built-in email campaigns tool. You'll find that in your manage events dashboard at the top. So this is a relatively new feature, and it's a great way to highlight your events. So you can send promotion for all of your events and star one event. There's lots of customization as well available. So that's something to really look into. And you can also upload a database if you have a database of people that you want to send invitations out to. And you can also send it to people who have previously attended your events. And another good thing about that is it helps you keep your contact list clean. So if anyone does unsubscribe, it separates them out into a separate list so that you're only sending promotional information to people who want it. And then also you can sell more tickets directly from Facebook as well. So you can allow your attendees to discover, purchase, and access their tickets to your events all in one place with our add to Facebook functionality. And with this one, Eventbrite organizers who do use our Facebook integration have seen 20% more sales for paid tickets and 2 times more registrations for free tickets. And then lastly, you can simplify your performance marketing with paid social ads. So this is an Eventbrite app tool that can plug into your events and your event data to optimize your Facebook and Instagram advertising spend. A big challenge that event creators do face when running a successful ad campaign on Facebook and Instagram is figuring out who to target. So paid social ads makes it easy to find the people most likely to attend your event so that you can ensure that every penny spent is helping to grow your community. So for example, you can automatically target anyone who's expressed interest in events like yours on Facebook, or quickly narrow in on anyone who has attended past Eventbrite events. And once your ad campaigns are up and running, paid social ads will leverage data insights and marketing expertise, and this will optimize how your money is spent. So you simply set your budget and we'll automatically reallocate your spend to the audience bringing in the most engagement. And not just engagement, but clicks and ticket sales as well. And lastly, tracking and analytics. So it's really important that anything you launch for your marketing campaign is tracked wherever possible. So what this does is it allows you to pinpoint what channels and activities have been successful in driving your attendance, and it can help you narrow your focus for your next event. So I recommend ensuring your website and performance marketing is set up with pixels, and that's going to ensure that you know where conversions are happening and from what channel they originated. And if you're sharing your event page URLs through different channels, it's also a great idea to create tracking links. Again, this is something that's going to help you see where traffic is coming from and correctly attribute your campaign activity to conversions. And then lastly, reporting. So make sure you keep an eye on your registration numbers. And also look at what channels are converting and the audience as well that you're reaching so that you can optimize your campaign as you go. Again, we're going to send a lot of information in the follow-up and that goes through each one of these in detail. And now, lastly, I just want to finish up and cover some best practices for your online events. So first, tell your attendees what to expect. So it's a good idea in the event description to explain where and how attendees can be able to access the online event once they register. So for example, you might say in the event description, when you register, you'll unlock access to our online event page, and that will include the webinar link, your PDF workbook to print out ahead of time, something like that. And this is great information as well to include in your order confirmation email, just so that they have that information to hand as well at any time. And next, you're going to want to write a talk tracker script. So whether you have a formal presentation or not, outlining content you plan that you've planned is really helpful to help you stay on track. So ensure that you have a good content flow, and it gives you space as well to gut check your event programming. So it's really important to have that outline so you know where you're going next and that it's flowing well. And also it helps you to kind of question as well, are you interacting with your audience enough? Is the material cohesive and easy to follow? Does it run on a time? And does it fit into the time frame you carved out for the event? And the next one then we kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about speakers, is it's important to perform a trial run. So with speakers, it's important to perform a trial run with them, but also it's a good idea to do it with a colleague or friend who hasn't seen the material, just to see how it will flow from an attendee who's coming in with fresh eyes and hasn't seen what you'll be covering. Next up is test your technology. So, I mean, we've all had, I think, as we've moved into having more Zoom calls and online meetings, we've all at some point or another run into technology issues, Wi-Fi dropping, earpods dying because of the battery. So it is important to test your technology just to make sure everything's running smoothly. If you're using a platform and you want to be interactive using polls and things like that, just so that you can test it and make sure that you know how to use all of those features if you're having breakout rooms, for example, so that it all runs smoothly on the day. And then our final tip is to include a follow-up. So no matter what type of event you're hosting, we always suggest sending a follow-up email to attendees. So this could be simple as thank you for joining, or as similar to what we're going to be sending out following this webinar. You could send a follow-up email that includes resources, a recording, FAQs, and even links as well to buy tickets to your other upcoming events. So regardless of what touch point makes sense for you, some kind of afterglow messaging is a valuable way to keep attendees engaged long after your event wraps. And another good tip that I find invaluable for these kind of webinars is to send out a short survey as well. That gives you a good gauge on what the reaction from your attendees was to your webinar. You can find things to improve, and even if you want to kind of get a gauge on what type of subjects they want, attendees would be interested in attending a webinar in future, it's a good way to get that information as well. So that's it. Thanks very much for joining. I hope you all found this very useful, and keep an eye out for that follow-up email in the coming days. It's also a good idea to keep an eye on our YouTube channel, as there's a lot of useful how-to videos, tutorials, and also webinars like this that delve deeper into certain subjects. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you do have a couple of minutes, please do fill out that survey, as we do find your feedback very valuable. Thanks very much and have a great rest of your day.